Hello, everyone. My name is Ramon Sodano. I am the coordinator for fitness services. I'm just getting aware that this is happening. I'm the coordinator for weight room personal training and well-being online at the rec center. So I just want to welcome you all to today's Cood Connect, which will be I titled it Broomstick Mobility, and this is really just to show you all some quick tips and tricks and just little quick hacks that you can do at home to be able to maintain basic mobilities of different regions. And today we're focusing on shoulder mobilization. I'm sure I will do a few of these and I will go into different mobility strategies. So what we are seeing is, even at work or being at home for these consistent periods of time, we're in this, seated position at our desk for a long period of time. We can have, good rounded shoulders and all that. That's not good, honestly. Jim Morrison, is anybody else having trouble hearing me? Okay, so Jim, apologize. I don't know what's going on with your system. I will hope that you can fix that up on your end. Anyways, so we're kind of going through these mobility hacks, and I have this little gym at my house that I'll be utilizing. You can honestly do this anywhere that you want. But some of the things that we do see with individuals is we start to really limit our shoulder mobility, whether it be flexion, whether it be external rotation, internal rotation, and those kinds of things. And a lot of people think, oh, when I'm having shoulder issues, it's just going to affect the shoulder. Maybe I'll have some pain here and there. And a lot of times what we actually do see is, for instance, you'll get the numbness in the hands because maybe there's a brachial plexus problem, which is an area where a bunch of nerves run through that go down to your hand. In the shoulder, if I have a bit of an impingement because I'm not actually getting the full range of motion that I actually want from my shoulder. And there's multiple different strategies to be able to mobilize your shoulders to increase flexion, extension, rotation, and all those kinds of things. There's definitely very in-depth ones that you can do, and we're just going to cover some very basic ones that you can do at home, essentially with a broomstick. At a gym, this is typically something you utilize PVC pipes for. If you have a PVC pipe at your house, that's great, but honestly, any stick, you could break a stick off a tree and it would be completely fine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hop up here and throw my computer on up here. So first, I just want to talk about some faults that we commonly see with overhead positioning. So a lot of you may know, doing overhead exercises where I'm pressing up overhead, it's a basic exercise that we do. What a lot of people do, and I'm going to try to make this make the most sense with how big my camera is and stuff. A lot of time what we see is when people start to go overhead, they start to extend at the back. So as they press overhead, they extend at the back. I'm sure you've seen people do this exact thing if they have a dumbbell and they start to press overhead and get this big extension that's going bad. So when we are actually trying to utilize overhead positions, we really want to maintain a neutral spine. We don't want to fall into this big extension. We want to keep a nice neutral spine, which fires glute activation, all kinds of things like that. So we see this is what's called an anterior pelvic tilt in a lot of our individuals. What an issue with that, and where it actually comes in, where it happens a lot, is when people are pressing overhead, they want to be able to push as much weight as possible. And one thing that's going to be able to help them push more weight is when they start to extend. Now, that's not actually allowing, your shoulders aren't pushing any more weight at that point, right? This is what we call a compensation, and it's putting yourself in what's called a contraindicated position. So when we are creating this compensation, it's not allowing our shoulders to do any more work. We're not getting any more muscle activation or whatever it may be at that region, because now what we're doing is we're compensating the spine to be able to decrease what we call the Moen arm, or the angle that we have to overcome to get this pressing. So just because you're lifting a heavier dumbbell, but now we've put ourselves in this hyperextended position, doesn't mean you're training the shoulders any more than you were before when you were in a good position for your spine. And now when we go into this extended position, it's putting a lot of strain on our vertebrae. So if you think of each individual vertebrae, it's this little articulating kind of structure that has a little disc in the middle. And when we go into extreme extension, we're pushing this disc outward, right? So imagine there's like a little gel-like thing in between my two fists here, and our disc is being pushed out. So when we go into this big extension, that disc is being pushed out, and now we have force coming down through in an unstable, contraindicated position, which can cause, you know, slip disc, injuries to those kinds of regions, which is why we want to maintain that strong neutral spine. Granted, there's going to be a little bit of extension no matter what. A little bit is fine. We need to fire the lumbar vertebrae, the musculature and stuff like that down there. But you don't want to do this super over exaggerated. And you'll see people sitting down, you know, like on, you know, a bench, and they're completely arched at the back. We really want to take these hips and move them back into more of a neutral position. Having a little bit of extension, right? I have my muscles engaged. This is completely fine. Once you start getting to these big drops, it's not very good. So the reason why I bring that up is because in all these different mobilization drills that we're going to go through, I want you to constantly think about keeping that neutral spine. And for proper terms, it's called creating a posterior pelvic tilt. And the reason why we say that is let me see if I can get my camera to work this all right. Think about where my pelvis is. So here is my pelvis region, right? If I have an anterior pelvic tilt, so the anterior is the front side, posterior is the back side, I have my back here. Once I go into hyperextension with my back, my pelvis tilts forward. So that's called an anterior pelvic tilt. So when we're doing these mobilization drills, we want to maintain a posterior pelvic tilt. So now we see that the pelvis is going from this tilt forward to tilting backwards, right? So we see that we're nice and straight here. So with each one of these mobilization drills that we're going to do, or that you're going to watch and try out later on, we want to try to think about as much as possible. And the easiest way to make that happen is all you do, and simply put, is just squeeze your cheeks, right? Having good glute activation, squeezing your butt cheeks is going to help bring that stuff forward. So how I would recommend to utilize these kinds of drills is they're good warm-ups if you're going to do an upper body workout. They're just good to do throughout the day. You should keep your body moving as much as possible. There's a good term that I always tell my trainers, and that's motion is lotion, right? Keep yourself moving, you're going to be feeling better. Motion is lotion. Keep oiling up your rig, your car, your meat vessel, whatever you want to call it, right? So I always advise, especially in times like this when we're at home for long periods of time, so we're at our, our work desk, at least once every hour, hop up and do something. I don't care if it's 25 squats, 20 lunges, various exercises. I do mobility drills. I call them mobility WODs. I got them from a guy way back in the day who's very popular now. His name's Kelly Starrett, and he created mobility WODs, and WOD stands for workout of the day. So every hour on the hour, I stand up and do a different mobility drill. So you could do this entire shoulder sequence during that time. You could do one at a time, and you can make kinds of things up. It's just try to keep yourself moving while we're in this very stationary position. I'm going to try to make this the best I can. I don't know how much of my camera is showing. So what I'm talking about is going to be broomstick mobility, right? So I have my broom here, and I can easily unscrew it, right? And I can just get my stick. And this is what we're going to be utilizing, is this nice broomstick for what we're doing. And again, I'm going to try this the best I can. I don't have much room. This is a spare bedroom, so we'll make this the best I can. So now we have our mobility stick, as you can see, and I'll lower this. This is going to be difficult, everyone. And we're going to go through a couple of different mobilization drills using this stick, okay? And remember, the whole idea is to not go into that extension, to keep the ribs down. Okay, so that's one thing that is a good term that you can discuss with people, is keeping the ribs down. So when you grab your mobility stick or your broomstick, when we do get back to the rec, we have these orange sticks there, and they have rubber on each end, and they're called mobility sticks, and they're very flexible in the middle, and they grip to the ground really well. So it's very good for different mobility drills. So check those out when we get back in there. But when you have this mobility stick, this broomstick, you essentially want your starting position for any of these drills, for this drill, our over and backs, is going to be resting in the crease of the hip. So you can see that this broomstick is in the crease of my hips. And now to kind of warm our shoulders up for our static drills that we're going to do here in a little bit, we're going to do what are called over and backs. You can call them whatever you want. and I'm sure plenty of you have seen this before. The goal when doing this is to actually keep a full fist around the stick. A lot of people start to open their hands. Try to keep your full fist around. So if you have to go a little bit wider to keep a full fist around, that's fine. You want to be in a position that is as narrow as possible, but you can maintain a full grip. You're going to have nice locked elbows, and remember, we're not extending at the back, we're staying nice and down, and it's just over and back, right? Breathing the whole time, just bringing it over and back. Elbows stay locked. You may need a longer broomstick because maybe going too narrow is going to be too hard for you, but the better and better you get at it, the more and more narrow you can get. Now, what we're looking for when we were talking about all that tilting and stuff is what you will see a lot of individuals do is as they come over, they have to arch at the back, right? Now we are creating a compensation to get up and over. That is not increasing my shoulder mobility, right? So if I'm having to extend at the back, that means I'm compensating at the lumbar region to be able to make this motion happen, okay? If I'm trying to focus on the shoulder to be able to mobilize it, you need to be able to isolate it, right? So that's what we're trying to do. And a good way to honestly do it, which is another topic in itself, is called the radiation throughout the body. But for now, just focusing on using those shoulders to go back and forth and not creating that compensation at the lower back, keeping it nice and straight the whole time. Again, think about that posterior pelvic tilt, you'll be good. And you'll notice, you will find out when you're too narrow. So if I'm here, which I brought my hands more narrow, for me to be able to get up and across, I'm not going to be able to just do it with my shoulders, but I can do it if I arch my back. So this position, you can see how my ribs are sticking out, is not good. We want here, okay? So over and backs is what I would start with for about 10 to 15. It's going to take that shoulder through its natural range of motion. And the more and more you do it, slowly start sliding your hands more inward, okay? And yeah, definitely only go as far that feels okay. At any point, if you're feeling, so pain is your body's feedback to you, right? You should listen to your body 100%. It may be a little awkward at first. You may hear some creaking and things like that, because sometimes it's weird when we haven't taken these bodies through these motions. But what you will see is typically what you would use is something like a PVZ pipe. So you can see the height differences in these two things. So with a PVZ pipe, you're going to be able to have a much longer area to be able to bring your hands where you need to go. So over time, if you're real wide at first, you slowly are going to slide them inward, okay? And you don't need to get to a point like this. This doesn't mean great. Honestly, just being around where you can just rest this in your hips is completely fine. So now what we would do is we warmed up our shoulders a little bit, right? We got the blood flowing to it, okay? We're creating that lotion in there. And for this specific, and there's tons of mobility drills that you can do. This one is focusing more towards what we call static stretching. So this is where you're going to get into a position and you're going to hold it for 30 seconds to a minute. So what we know with the shoulder is there's multiple different movements that it can go through. So your shoulder can go through what's called, let's get this down here just a little bit so we can see me a little bit better. When we bring our shoulder up, this is called shoulder flexion. So as I'm raising my hand, that's called shoulder flexion. Now when we go behind, this is shoulder extension, right? So we have flexion, we have extension. Then we also have external rotation and internal rotation, or external rotation, internal rotation. So we are three-dimensional creatures, right? We should train our body in three-dimensional ways and have it be prepared for the different things that can happen in these three dimensions, right? So each one of the static drills that we're going to discuss is going to be, one's focused on flexion, one is focused on external rotation, and one is focused on extension. Each one of these you can hold for anywhere for 30 seconds to a minute, and it's going to be good. But again, where people get into trouble is they start ranking on themselves. You just need to go to where you feel the stretch. So the best thing to think about with that concept is go to pain, but not into pain. If you start feeling stuff in your elbows and all that, that's not where we're trying to feel this kind of stuff. And I'll explain that when we get into the external rotation. You're trying to feel it more in the shoulder region and then all the way back, like in the lower traps, rhomboids, and your rotator cuff. So let's get through each one of these drills. You see, yeah, I think you can still see me all right. So we will start with shoulder flexion. So some of these things you're gonna feel like a ninja, right? Because you have to put your hand in some weird spots. So for our shoulder flexion drill, you're gonna have palm down on top, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this stick and I'm going to throw it up over my shoulder. So this comes up and over my shoulder. I come through and I grab it and I pull it down and I bring my elbow up. Now it's important, again, don't get into that extension. Make sure to keep your back nice and straight. And I have a full grip around my shoulder, around the broomstick, right? I'm not opening my hand. I have a full grip. So only go, that's a good feedback to yourself. Only go as far as you can while maintaining a full grip. So we don't want this position to the elbow to flare out. We want to keep it nice and straight. To increase the stretch, you can either pull the elbow up farther, or you can just take the dowel and pull it down, which has the same effect. Again, full grip around the hand and bring it as far as you can to where there is no pain. And again, we don't want this huge extension. We want to maintain that nice flat back. Where you should be feeling this one is in the lat, okay? This one, so a lot of issues that we see with a lot of shoulder immobility is people are very immobile in the lats, and that's why it's very hard to get up over our head. So that flexion drill is really going to help with that lat mobility, and which will then turn into more mobility for the entire shoulder region. If any of you are lifters, you like to do front squats, you're doing cleans and that kind of stuff, being able to increase this position is going to help your front rack position. So flexion drill, again, palm comes on top, okay? We throw the broomstick back behind us, and notice that, see, I'm not on the side of my arm, I'm literally behind my shoulder. So a lot of people make the mistake and they just come right here when you actually want to be behind, okay? Bring it down, bring it up. Now we're going to work for external rotation of the shoulder, right? External rotation. So we're opening the doorknob. This one, again, take my broomstick, palm down. This is if I'm working, you know, my left side, your right side. Again, full grip on the broomstick. I always like to make it look cool. Pump it, bring it all the way over, right? So what you're doing is you're externally rotating and you're keeping the broomstick on the back side of the elbow, okay? At this point, we're in this nice position, and then we externally rotate, okay? This one, again, make sure you're keeping a full grip on the broomstick, because obviously I can get way farther if I'm only holding 2 fingers. That's not what I'm trying to do, and that's actually putting a lot of undue stress on my elbow. This one, you should definitely be feeling back more in the rotator cuff region. Rotator cuff, right? Rotation. So again, take this broomstick, up and over, catch it. Here's my positioning. Keep that full hand, bring it over. What you're going to see people do is they do this. You're not stretching your shoulders, or you're not really stretching your shoulder, right? You're stretching muscles and stuff around it. But this is not doing anything more. That's just you just leaning your body. So nice, stiff torso, and pull that to the side. And honestly, the best way to think about this, don't think about pulling from down here. Think about rotating from up here. And this on the bottom side is just a little bit more of assistance to get to different regions. Now to make this nice and sturdy, I always keep this against my body, okay? Ways that you can make it harder or get more of a stretch once you start getting that release is, again, you can pull up more, or just like the other one, you can slide this down more. So this one really helps with that front rack position as well, because as you know, when you catch in the front rack, that hand needs to be outside the shoulder. So we've done flexion, we've done external rotation, now we're going to do extension. So for this one, if you have like a little grippy thing on your broomstick like I do, I like this to be away from me. This one's the one that kind of throws people off. So how I teach it is I set the broomstick down and I'm grabbing it here, right? So I'm not palm down this time. I've been palm down every single time. I'm grabbing this one the other way, okay? At this point, I'm going to bring it up behind me, just like so. So I'm going to bring it up behind me, and I grab it with my arm, keep my back nice and straight, and I come into extension. Okay, so this one, I am here, and notice how it's behind my shoulder. It's not on the outside of my elbow. This would put a lot of strain on your wrist, right? We don't want this. So you're behind the shoulder. Keeping a nice straight back, go into extension. Seeing it from here, nice straight back, go into extension. Okay, so you don't have to go a huge way. You're gonna, like, right when you start feeling that tension, hold there, right? A lot of people are gonna be able to get pretty far, right? But it's just gonna take a little bit of time to get there. What's gonna happen is a lot of people are like, oh, I can get farther. I'm not doing anything more at this point. So make sure you have that nice posterior pelvic tilt, bring this up, hold that shoulder, hold that arm, and extension behind. So that is the hardest one, and the one thing I want to revisit on it is how to get in position. So I'm going to try to make this easier to see. So every other one we've been grabbing like this. For this, you're grabbing here and then throwing it behind, right? Throwing it behind, bringing the arm up and over, and then getting into position. And again, we don't want this hard extension at the back, right? Keep everything nice and straight. Bring it up to where we can. So those are 3 mobility or static stretching drills that can help you increase the range of motion of your shoulder. The up and overs is to kind of prep yourself to be able to go into those. You shouldn't go into any sort of static stretching or any type of like sequence of something like this without trying to move the body around a little bit. You should always get your heart rate up a little bit, get the blood flowing a little bit. Honestly, even before whole mobility sequences and things like that, I typically would either, we don't have these anymore, but like I would hop on the Versa climber for like 5 minutes, go on a quick little light, real light jog for 5 minutes, go on a walk for 5 minutes, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, thank you very much. These are super simple and effective moves. They, you will be very surprised at when you try to put yourself in some of these positions. I can create like a little sheet and I'll send it over to Don just so anybody who maybe wants these can see them in pictures because it might be kind of hard to remember. And these are some of the very basic shoulder mobility drills. There's a lot of cool stuff that we can get into. There's a lot of more intricate stuff. But again, it goes back to that concept is just motion is lotion. And then it's all about proper motion, right? There's all these compensations that we see that take place in the body to try to get us into better positions or into positions where we can push more weight or do more. You have to understand that that can actually be contraindicated towards other areas of your body. So if you see that when you just try to lift your arms above your head, that you start to arch at your lower back, it's telling you, your shoulder's telling you, I don't have a shoulder. I don't have a proper shoulder. I don't have where I could push my head through to get to it, right? If your shoulder's not doing what it's supposed to do, so it's starting to take other areas of the body to be able to do what it needs to do. So then you can start breaking those things down and understanding them a little bit better. I will definitely get those pics and I'll send them to Don, who is not here right now. I'm sure Jessica, who's the actual host, can help me with that. So you all can have this kind of stuff and make sure to email those out or put them somewhere where they're able to go to all of you. So with that, I just want to make sure that you all are looking forward to, I believe the Coup Connect tomorrow it's actually with my direct supervisor, Jessica Witt, is a virtual dance party. I highly recommend going to it. Jess is super fun. It'll be less technical. I know I'm much more of the technical kind of person. I know I'm kind of dry, so I apologize for that. It's just my style. I think tomorrow will be very fun. Virtual dance party, definitely check it out. With that, that's all I got. So thanks for coming and listening to my little blurb.